Well, we've made it. Chapter 18 of the Heart Sutra, the grand finale.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. From emptiness to impermanence, and now the perfection of renunciation.
You know, it can sound intimidating, but remember, the Heart Sutra isn't about adding more to our to-do list.
Right. It's more about seeing reality as it is.
Exactly. And I think that this chapter 18, really gives us a powerful lens for doing that.
Okay, so no more beating around the bush. Let's jump into this final chapter.
Okay, sounds good.
The Heart Sutra, it jumps right in, doesn't it? Right from the start, we had this line, Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, said, "Furthermore, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing."
Yeah, and that really sums up everything we've talked about so far, right? This idea that everything, all those things we cling to, they're empty.
Empty. So how does that lead to renunciation? If everything's already empty, what's left to renounce?
Well, it's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Renunciation in the Heart Sutra isn't about physically giving things up.
So it's not like donating all your possessions and becoming a monk.
No, not necessarily. It's about a shift in perspective. It's recognizing that our happiness, our sense of self, it can't be found in those external things.
So it's more internal than external.
Exactly. And the chapter goes on to say, therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no volition, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or mental object.
Whoa, that's a lot to take in. It's like stripping everything away, our senses, our thoughts, all empty.
This is where the Heart Sutra gets really radical. It's challenging us to see that even ourself, our ego, is made up of these empty things. It's not this solid thing.
It's not some unchanging entity.
But yeah,
right?
it's more like a collection of experiences, all fleeting.
I think I see where the renunciation comes in. If we're so attached to this self, and that self is based on empty, impermanent things, then that's going to cause suffering.
You got it. That's the core of it. Clinging to this illusion of self keeps us trapped.
Trapped?
Yeah, trapped in the cycle of always wanting more, always avoiding pain, building our whole identity around these temporary experiences.
And the Heart Sutra is saying, that won't work.
It's saying, look, you're building on sand. Eventually, it'll all crumble.
Okay, so renunciation is about recognizing our true nature, our true self, isn't bound by any of that. It's about letting go.
Letting go, yes. And resting in this awareness of emptiness.
The chapter says no ignorance and no extinction of ignorance, no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death, no suffering, no origination of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It's like it's breaking down everything we think we know about life and death, about suffering.
You know, what's really interesting here is that the Heart Sutra doesn't deny suffering.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It's saying that even suffering is empty. It comes from that clinging, that grasping at things that won't last.
So if we can let go, if we can embody this perfection of renunciation, we can be free from suffering.
That's what it points to, yes.
The chapter goes on. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide in the perfection of wisdom, free from mental obstructions. Having no mental obstructions, they have no fear and pass far beyond confused imaginings. Finally, they attain complete nirvana.
And that's what's possible.
It's like they've gone beyond the limitations of how we normally see things. They're not held back by fear or doubt anymore.
Exactly. They're living from a place of deep wisdom and compassion.
That's the key, isn't it? This chapter, chapter 18, it's not about becoming some kind of emotionless robot.
Not at all.
It's about living with more awareness, more understanding.
Yes, about embracing life, but not getting swept away by our desires.
That's a message that seems very relevant today.
I agree. We live in a world that tells us to want more, be more, do more, but the Heart Sutra offers something different.
A different path.
A path to freedom, to fulfillment that comes from letting go.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we take this ancient wisdom and apply it to our lives today?
That's a great question, and that's what we'll explore next time. We'll look at some concrete examples of how we can cultivate this perfection of renunciation.
Looking forward to it. Feels like we've climbed this mountain, we've reached a peak, but now we got to figure out how to get back down.
And how to bring that wisdom back with us.
Exactly. That's where the real journey begins.
I think so too.
Okay, so we've climbed to the top, we've seen the view from chapter 18.
We have.
And now we got to figure out how to get back down to real life, you know?
How to apply it.
Yeah, apply this perfection of renunciation stuff I don't know, it feels a little overwhelming.
I know what you mean. It's like we have this map, but the terrain's totally different now.
Exactly. How do we navigate all this modern stuff with this ancient wisdom?
Well, renunciation, it sounds good, but we're surrounded by messages telling us to get more, do more, be more.
Yeah, it's true.
But I think that's why this teaching is so important today. It's like an antidote
To that craving.
Yes, to that craving. So how do we actually start applying it?
Right.
Do we have to give up everything, quit our jobs?
Become monks.
Ha! No, not necessarily. Remember, the Heart Sutra, it's not about the externals. It's about the internal shift.
Right. Recognizing that happiness doesn't come from things.
Exactly. It doesn't depend on those things.
But how do we make that shift? Our minds are so used to chasing after stuff.
That's where mindfulness comes in.
Mindfulness.
Yeah. The Heart Sutra might not use that exact word, but the whole text is really about cultivating that awareness.
Awareness of our experience.
Yeah.
Our thoughts, our feelings.
Exactly, without judgment. And as we pay more attention, we start to see those patterns of clinging. Yeah. Like when you're scrolling on social media and you start comparing yourself.
Oh, all the time. Everyone's life seems so perfect online.
And in that moment, instead of getting caught up in it, you can just pause, take a breath, and notice what's happening inside.
Not judging myself for feeling envious or whatever.
Just noticing it and maybe asking yourself, is this helpful? Is this thought leading me towards peace or towards suffering?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about bigger things like my career, my relationships? How does renunciation work there?
Well, chapter 18, it says no suffering, no origination of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path. It's acknowledging that suffering is a part of life,
Yeah.
But it's also pointing to a way out.
By letting go.
Yes, letting go of that clinging. So with your career, it's not about giving up ambition.
Oh.
It's about shifting the focus. It's about finding the joy in the work itself.
Not attaching to the outcome so much.
Exactly. Not tying your self-worth to those external markers of success.
So I can still, want that promotion,
Of course.
but I don't have to make it my whole identity.
Yeah, and that can be really freeing. Because if you don't get it, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that particular door didn't open.
Right. It frees you up to focus on what really matters.
And this non-attachment, it applies to relationships too. Chapter 18 says, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment.
Okay, so how does that relate to how I interact with my loved ones?
Well, it's about not clinging to an idea of how they should be.
Or how the relationship should be?
Right. It's about loving them as they are, fully, without needing them to complete you or make you happy.
So it's about appreciating the now, the present moment, and letting the relationship just be.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean you become passive. It just means you're approaching it with more spaciousness.
Allowing both of you to grow, to change.
Yes. So I think what we're seeing is that this perfection of renunciation, it can actually enhance our lives.
It's not about deprivation.
It's about freedom.
Freedom from those beliefs and attachments that cause suffering.
And that freedom allows us to really live, to experience all of it.
With open hearts.
With open hearts, yes. And open minds.
This is pretty amazing stuff.
It is. And it's more relevant than ever today, I think.
So we've talked about this perfection of renunciation, but how do we actually live it in our everyday lives?
Right. It's one thing to understand it, in our heads.
Yeah.
But it's another to actually live it.
Especially in this crazy world, right? It's like, how do I explain emptiness to my boss when I'm asking for a raise?
Maybe we can start with something a little simpler.
Okay, great.
Remember how the Heart Sutra talks about mindfulness?
Right, mindfulness.
How about we bring that into our daily routine?
Okay, but we're not talking about hours of meditation, right? Because honestly, I can barely find 5 minutes of peace in my day.
No, not at all. It's not about escaping. It's about paying attention, really noticing.
Noticing what?
Those moments when we're clinging, when we're all caught up in our desires and attachments.
Like when I'm scrolling through social media and comparing myself to everyone.
Exactly. Instead of getting lost in that, you can just pause, pause breath, and observe. Just see what's happening inside.
So I don't have to beat myself up for feeling jealous or whatever?
No, just notice it. Ask yourself, is this helpful? Is this leading me towards peace or towards suffering?
Okay, I get that. But what about bigger things, like my career, my relationships?
Well, remember what chapter 18 says. No suffering, No origination of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path. It's acknowledging that suffering is part of life.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's also showing us a way out.
By letting go.
Letting go, yeah. So with your career, it's not about giving up ambition.
Okay. Yeah.
It's about shifting the focus, finding the joy in the work itself.
Not getting too attached to the outcome.
Right, not tying your self-worth to those external things.
So I can still, go for that promotion.
Absolutely.
But I don't have to make it my whole world.
Yeah, and that's where the freedom comes in. Because if you don't get it, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means that door didn't open this time.
Right. That frees you up to focus on what's important.
And this non-attachment, it applies to relationships too. Chapter 18 says, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment.
Okay. So how does that apply to my relationships with people I love?
It's about not clinging to an idea of how they should be.
Or how the relationship should be.
Exactly. It's about loving them for who they are completely without needing them to make you happy,
So just appreciating the present moment with them, letting the relationship just unfold.
Beautifully said. And that doesn't mean you become passive. It just means you're approaching it with more space.
Letting both of you change and grow.
Yes. I think we're seeing that this perfection of renunciation can actually make our lives richer.
It's not about taking things away.
It's about freedom.
Freedom from the beliefs and attachments that cause us to suffer.
And that freedom lets us really experience life, all of it, with open hearts and open minds.
Wow. This has been an incredible journey. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on the Heart Sutra.
It's been my pleasure. And to everyone listening, may the wisdom of the Heart Sutra guide you on your path
Towards peace, freedom, and enlightenment. Thanks for joining us.